Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back for another chapter reading of Shattered Dreams. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as we get into this book that all of us seem to be enjoying so much. We are now on chapter 31. Let's go. I'm sure Verlin loved us all in a way, but he absolutely flipped over Suzanne. He didn't have to tell any of us he favored her. He was intensely in love with her, and it showed. She needed him, and he thrived on her attentions. I believe he felt young and virile again. With such a young, pretty woman at his side, she was an absolute doll. Any man would have been proud to have been seen with her. It's so interesting that they're calling her, or that she's calling her, a woman, because he married her when she was 15. So I wouldn't be calling her a woman, but Irene is showing her respect here, so that's what she's calling her. But in my eyes, she's still a child. Suzanne experienced the polygamous society while growing up in Colonia LeBaron. Her father had 2 wives, so in theory, it probably seemed like something she could be able to do. But actually, practicing it with 5 older wives and dozens of children already in the picture was more than most girls born under the covenant would have been able to endure. We became friends. Over time, we even began to confide in each other about many things we couldn't share with anyone else. We discussed our desires and our doubts, admitting to each other that the glorious principle around which our fundamentalist faith was centered wasn't, in fact, satisfying to either of us. We both wanted a man of our own and a normal life, but God seemed to have other plans. Joel's stepdaughter, Lily, was destined to become Verlin's 7th wife, though it took God a while to work it out. It don't take God a while to work out anything. If that's what he desires, it is going to happen, even though we have free will. I'm just saying, like, I hate when people say certain things, but because they designed this cult, this religion, to favor men and have them marry off all these women so they could have all these kids and do whatever they want to do while these women remain in poverty, they're going to say whatever they want to say and put it on God. 2 years before his marriage to Suzanne, when Lily was 17, she and Verlin were engaged to be married, but she suddenly changed her mind, letting us know that these ladies had a choice on whether or not they wanted to be with a man, possibly. I don't know. Let's see. Time passed, and Lily was now a beautiful, willowy blonde. Still just 19, she was under pressure to marry before she became an old maid in the eyes of our society. To complicate matters, she was in love with a handsome young man her own age, but the brethren counseled her to marry someone with experience instead of someone who could exalt her right now. Someone who could exalt her right now rather than a man who wouldn't exalt her unless and until he leapt into the principle for himself by adding other wives down the road. So she's in love with one man, and you guys don't encourage her to be with the man that she's in love with. Instead, you suggest for her to be married to this much older man who already has a whole bunch of kids and a whole bunch of wives, and they're all living in poverty. Why wouldn't she want the guy that loves her and she loves, where she'll have to build her own family with? Maybe it will hurt her either way, but why would she not want that? This is crazy. Everyone agreed that that someone was Verlin. With 6 wives and 33 kids already part of his heavenly kingdom, Verlin believed he was well positioned to exalt another wife. Well positioned based on numbers, but not based on facts. These women are struggling, and he wants to add more mouths. It just doesn't make sense. He certainly wanted to try, especially since Lily would thereby round out his quorum of 7 wives. According to our faith, this would practically guarantee him godhood if he did nothing to mess things up. I still want to know where they get this 7 from. I was surprised when Lily decided to marry him, especially since she knew full well the poverty and loneliness we experienced. I was even more surprised when Verlin told me Lily preferred that I not attend their wedding. He said she wanted it small and private, meaning I wasn't welcome. So who handed him off? Did any of the wives go? I couldn't understand it. When Lily spent a year going to school with us, I'd been like a mother to her, always looking out for her needs. Why I bought her first bra. She was my daughter Donna's best friend. I was especially crushed when I discovered she invited some of Verlin's other wives. Yeah, that's a little odd. She wants it small, but other wives can go? This doesn't make sense. Let's see. I finally found out that Lily's problem with me was jealousy. She told Verlin I was too often the life of the party and she didn't want me around on her special day to take away her limelight. Not saying there can't be a sisterhood, but it often seems to me in a lot of these books that we've read that these women are in constant competition with each other. I don't get it. I was hurt that Verlin allowed Lily's jealousy to keep me away, but I was more hurt by her rude snub. Now she'd have to contend not only with Suzanne, who was the youngest and prettiest of Verlin's wives, but with me as well. Lily made her own white satin gown. She and Verlin married in San Diego on January 15th, 1971, surrounded by her family and friends. The ceremony drew a larger crowd than any of Verlin's previous weddings. Everyone knew that by marrying Lily, Verlin was securing his heavenly position. I tried not to dwell on that fact, and I'd had such a simple, secretive wedding. I tried to dwell on the fact that I had such a simple, secretive wedding under a tree with no guests and no gifts, wearing a borrowed suit of Charlotte's. My own consolation now was that Verlin had finally fulfilled his dream. With his and our salvation now secure, Verlin could stop his mad dash to add more wives. Now, all he had to do was father 17 more children, and he'd accomplish everything he had set out in life to do. What is this 17 number? Where the hey-ho did that come from that he has to have? This is crazy, y'all. He doesn't care how much poverty they're in, how hurt they are, as long as he gets the numbers that he sees himself having. Verlin is selfish in so many ways. I can't get with this. Also, why is it that certain wives are granted certain things that others aren't? This is while I was reading the whole thing about her not having a wedding while others were having a wedding and parties and stuff like that. It reminds me of the Christine and the Robin, if you watch Sister Wives, that dynamic, because Christine didn't get the wedding. Janelle didn't get the wedding, but Mary, the first wife, and Robin, the fourth, did. Let's continue. After Lily's wedding, Verlin's family multiplied faster than ever. Those were such trying times. I resented it when Verlin came home and announced that he felt he had to go on another mission for the Lord. I begged him to stay home. It was bad enough sharing him with 6 other wives, but if I had to share him with God too, I'd never make it. Verlin wanted to get away from y'all. Verlin says, I'm going to be there and I'm going to make sure that they're pregnant, and then because based on our doctrine, I don't have to do anything with them while they're pregnant, I'm going to go and just enjoy not having to actually be a father. These men. Verlin insisted that his God came before any woman or other mere earthly duties. I knew it was against the church rules for a woman to go on a mission trip. A woman's mission was to stay home and indoctrinate the children. Still, while Verlin packed to leave, I teased him just to give him a hard time. I clung playfully to him as he tried to leave, Please let me go on a mission with you. No, he said, trying to pull away. You know my companion has to be a man. I have more qualifications than any man, I said, throwing out my chest. He not gonna like this. Don't you know he don't like when you joke with him? See, I could go and be your bosom companion. He laughed. Oh, I'm surprised. But my qualifications didn't get me anywhere, and he left. While Verlin was still off doing his duty, preaching and trying to bring in new members to the church, I wrote to him, Lover. Oh, Mary called her man Lover. Lover, if you'd come home and be with your 7 wives, we could produce more members than you could ever convert. Goodness gracious, the depths that these ladies go to. You gotta keep carrying all these babies and make him happy. Meanwhile, you're miserable. The Baptist World Mission set up a small clinic just 20 miles south of us in San Quentin. I was back in my house in Los Molinos, pregnant with my 12th child. I was glad for the new Baptist doctor. El Buen Pastor, the Good Shepherd, was written on the Quonset Quonset hut in which the clinic was housed. The small new facility had only 3 beds, one of which was the delivery table. It was November 3rd, 1971, my due date. But since my previous labor lasted all of 25 minutes, I decided to go to the clinic before I actually had any pains this time. When I arrived, the doctor didn't have a place to examine me. All the beds were already occupied by women who had just had their babies. Dr. Cano had his assistant drive one of the women to her home, freeing up the delivery table. The nurse helped lift me onto the table and then prep me for delivery. Before they proceeded, the doctor and nurse prayed over me for God to guide their hands. Then Dr. Cano dripped a solution into the vein in my arm to induce labor. In exactly 45 minutes from beginning to end, I gave birth to Seth Michael, who weighed in at 9.5 pounds. Oh, she has big babies. Having such a big baby so fast required me to get my first set of stitches ever. I don't think it has to do with how fast you did it. I think it has to do with the fact that he was so big. Hold still. It'll be over in a few minutes, Dr. Cano said. I only need to put in 3 or 4 stitches. Still groggy from the anesthesia, yet never too drugged for humor, I said, Doctor, let's really surprise my husband, and just sew the whole thing up. She is a riot. After Seth's arrival, I was sick in bed for several weeks. I had blood clots in my legs and was in danger of having further complications. My friend Betty took me to her home to care for me. She bought me my first new nightgown and bathrobe since the nightgown Charlotte gave me for my honeymoon. Y'all, she's been married for well over a decade at this point, and this is her first nightgown since the one that she got from Charlotte when she first got married. I was elated about the turquoise satin robe. After I recovered, I went on a 2-day trip with Verlin to San Diego. While we were gone, 14-year-old Andre had an attack of the appendix. Donna rushed him to the Baptist clinic where they operated on him. That was a miracle in itself. Only 1 day a month, doctors flew in from the States to donate their time and perform various operations. It just so happened that Andre arrived in pain on the designated day. When they saw him doubled over, they took him ahead of the scheduled patients and operated on him immediately. That's true, because that thing could have been ruptured and killed him. When Seth was only 4 months old, he was sick for several days with a fever and an earache. It was foggy and cold out in the middle of February. Our only source of heat in the whole house was a gas heater in my bedroom. I rocked my crying baby until I could no longer stay awake. These kids are getting sick and having some of these complications, like her daughter that had pneumonia, because of their living conditions. because they have no heat, because their father just keeps putting up basic walls and taping them together. It was just growing light outside when I crawled into the bed between my daughters, Donna and 2-year-old Verlana. I needed to snatch up just a few minutes of sleep before it was time to get the kids up for school. As if in a far-off dream, I heard little Verlana fall off the bed onto the cold cement floor. Oh, gracious. I was so out of it, I couldn't think of what to do. Couldn't figure out that I needed to pick her up and put her back in bed beside me. She didn't cry or try to get up. I seemed to be in a deep sleep when a voice spoke to me. Irene, get up immediately or it will be too late. I tried to move, but I couldn't make my body function. Again, the voice warned me, get up right now. Forcing myself to respond, I swung my legs over the side of the bed and weakly stood up. I hollered, Donna, then I passed out on the floor. Donna immediately threw back the covers, saw her sister and me passed out on the floor, and screamed for help. Stephen, Stephen. Then she too crumbled to the ground. What is going on? What is going on? From across the hall, Stephen heard our cries. Oh, I wonder if it's from the heater. Opening my bedroom door, he saw our bodies sprawled out on the floor and realized we had all been asphyxiated by the gas. He rushed to turn off the heater and butane lamp, then threw open the windows. He picked up his unconscious little sister and carried her into the living room. By then, Andre, Brent, and Kaylin were in the room trying to drag Donna and me out. They also rescued baby Seth from his crib. When I regained consciousness, I was weak and had a terrific pounding headache. My fingernails were blue from the lack of oxygen. Andre drove us to the clinic where we suffered all day with nausea and ringing in our ears. Still, we were thankful to have survived and to know we'd be okay. Dr. Kano was very concerned about my health. Several varicose veins were swollen and broken in my legs, causing me a great deal of pain. He explained how important it was that I didn't get pregnant again. Yeah, because you're doing too much. Like, her body has gone through this 13, well, she said her 13th. I don't know if she's including the baby that she lost in that number. So we're going to say 13 times. He insisted I bring Verlin in for my next consultation. I considered myself fortunate to be able to comply with the doctor's orders by getting Verlin there, but then Verlin embarrassed me with his reaction to what the doctor had to say. Why do you let this woman become pregnant so often? Dr. Kano lectured. Look at her bad veins. She's too young to have so many children. I believe you should go on some form of birth control. Verlin flared up. Of course he did, because he has the amount of number of kids and wives and all that other stuff that he wants. And if she goes on birth control, despite how this is affecting her health, then it messes up his number. He's all right if she continues to put herself at risk as long as he gets what he wants. I don't like Verlin. I mean, I didn't like him already, but I really don't like him. We don't believe in that. Our whole purpose is to multiply and replenish the earth. Standing up to leave, he added, it's our private business how many kids we have. And it's my business to tell you that your wife is in danger. But I guess what the doctor's saying doesn't matter. It only matters when you want your baby to come out the womb. This is some crap here. When we reached Verlin's truck, I got in beside him, knowing how upset he was. That doctor is far too worldly, Verlin said. I don't want you ever to see him again. Despite how many times he saved various members, despite them saving your son with the doctors from the states that came, you don't want her to see this doctor who's telling her about her health again. Besides, I have a better way to solve this problem. I just won't sleep with you anymore. That way, you won't be tempted, and for sure, you won't conceive again. Sleep with you anymore. He's not even talking about having sex. He's talking about being in her bed. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I was frantic, devastated. Here, I'd bore him 12 children, allowed him to take 5 new wives, 2 of which I'd given him permission personally. And now, when I was just 33, Verlin was shelving me. In my mind, that signaled the end of our marital relationship. Only God knew the turmoil this caused me. In the evenings, I walked the 2 miles to the beach where no one could hear me lying in the sand, crying and calling out to God. All hope was seeping out of me. I felt used and abandoned. Summertime arrived, and while trying to get my mind off my problems, I borrowed his truck to solicit nearby farmers to give us more free produce. I brought home loads of cauliflower, Brussels sprout, and potatoes. The older children helped cut the spoiled parts off the potatoes, and then we left them in the sun until a scab dried over the cuts. We put the potatoes in gunny sacks and stored them in our family storehouse. The only attention Verlin gave me was when he praised my intuition. So she's only good as a worker now at this point because she can't add to his kingdom. This is some crap. He was grateful that I helped him feed his giant family. Seeing how he relished unity among his wives and wanting desperately to regain his favor, I continued to fend for us all the best I could. As I fought against depression, I often wondered what the future held for my beautiful Donna. At just 17, she already been approached by at least 10 men, many claiming to have divine revelations that she should marry them. It was one thing for me to suffer living this life, but it enraged me to think of my precious children having to endure it as well. So now here she is in her 30s with her daughter, and now she's seeing how her mother felt when her mother didn't want her to get into this situation and to be a plural wife. Now she's getting a little taste of what her mom felt. No reward, here or in the next life, could be worth the disappointment I'd experienced. I'd come full circle to exactly where my mother was when we talked that afternoon in her cellar. Look at me knowing what was going to be next. The only 2 differences were that I'd never had the heart to teach my kids the principle the way I was supposed to. And Donna was already figuring out that she wanted no part of any of it. Good for Donna. Good for her. Being president of the church and the head of 7 families really put Verlin in a bind. So the squeakiest wheels continued to get all his grease. I finally clued in that he took me being quiet and supportive to mean I was doing just great. Since I knew how to be fairly self-reliant, I found myself getting left out more and more. Of course, my greatest loss was no longer having the touch and comfort of my husband, even once a month. And while I went completely without, I had to deal with the fact that he was very busy enjoying sexual pleasures with his other wives. I prayed to God every day to let me die. Her depression, her longing for him, her need to feel desired by her husband is destroying her. Verlin came to see me and tried to spur me on. He explained that now that our sex life was over, I should just buckle down and find joy in my children. I wonder if Cody had this same conversation with Mary and then later tried to have it with Christine. Because this is what Cody's talking about when he says he knows other plural men that don't have intimate relationships with their wives. This is what he's talking about. He is able to have it, so it doesn't matter that the woman suffers because he gets what he wants. I clung to him, begging him to make love to me. 15 months of abstinence was way too long. It'd been 15 months at this time. Oh my goodness. Where was the reassurance that he even wanted me anymore? I lied and told him there was no chance I'd become pregnant. I said that my period was due the next day. So finally he gave in and granted me one sweet moment of bliss. What the? This is crazy. A torrent of tears followed a few weeks later when I discovered that I was pregnant yet again. So she only gets to sleep with her husband for procreation purposes. He says to her, "Okay, I'm gonna give you this penis one last time." This sounds awful, but I mean, I'm gonna give this to you one last time, and then that's that. Okay. Verlin tried to make his bad behavior up to me by inviting me to go to Colonial LeBaron with him. Donna knew I was desperate for a trip, so she insisted I leave the other 10 children with her while I went with her father for a week. She's 17 and she's taking care of 10 kids. The day after we arrived at the colony, my friend Priscilla invited Verlin and me to her pizza party along with 2 unmarried women, Elizabeth and Helen. I've been close friends with all 3 women for years. All 3 were dedicated to our religious beliefs. 40-year-old Helen was widowed, heavy-set, and had her eye on my husband. Several times since her husband, Theron's death in the terrible car accident, she suggested to me the possibility of becoming a part of our family. I knew she was lonely. My relationship with her had endured for over 20 years, and I hated to have something like a husband come between us, but Verlin already had his hands way too full. However, our gospel teachings didn't exactly recognize such earthly limits. No good man had a right to turn down a converted woman who wanted to marry him. If he did, God might not give him any more wives. But this doesn't make sense because y'all have a choice, so you say, and all these other things. And he already has his 7. So why does he need any more? Well, as far as I was concerned, with the 7 that he already had, Verlin didn't need any more wives, even by his own ambitious measures. Helen was a great cook and a remarkable mother. Her 11 children loved her dearly, but they needed a father also. I felt bad there weren't any more men who were willing to share the responsibility for a good woman like her. Here's my thing, though. She said they need the father, but Verlin wasn't around. Verlin is always off working, and Verlin is always off with this particular wife, and Verlin is always doing this and doing that, and he has 7 wives, and he hasn't even been spending the night with you. So has he been coming by to see your kids? This don't make sense. She was a good woman whose husband left them behind on this earth without any man to help shepherd them. Still, Verlin's dance card was still quite full. After the party, I eventually managed to relax and put my worries about Helen to the side. The 5 of us were joking, having a great time. Y'all, what y'all think? When suddenly, Verlin became very quiet, obviously deep in thought. Oh, Lord. Okay, y'all. Put down now. It's the 29-minute mark. What do you think is about to happen? I think that Verlin is about to take on Helen as another wife, especially because of how much her husband did for the community. I think he's going to try to use that as an excuse or something like that, but we'll see. Did you put it down in the comment section? Okay, let's go. Then he asked, "Hey, Priscilla, do you have a piece of paper and a pen I could borrow?" I wondered what was so important that he had to write it down. Maybe he was starting a new game. We sat in silence, wondering. He scribbled a few words, folded the note, and then handed it to me, playfully bumping my knee with his. Pass this over to Helen, will you? He asked, seeming to be daring me. Elizabeth eyed Helen, then her eyes shifted to mine. What's going on here? I obediently handed the note to Helen. What's this? She asked, looking surprised. Go ahead and read it, but not out loud. Verlin is up to no good. Because why wouldn't it be read out loud unless it's going to say something that's going to piss the other people off? Verlin said, not out loud, as he nervously stood up. Helen carefully unfolded the paper. We watched as her mouth opened wider with each word she read. She looked at Verlin in disbelief. Is this for real? She asked, almost in a whisper. Yes, but don't say anything, he ordered as he walked toward the door. Helen jumped up squealing. She hugged Elizabeth. Then she almost knocked Priscilla off her chair when she threw her arms around her. Coming toward me, her face red with embarrassment, she exclaimed, I can't believe this. She hugged me tentatively, obviously hoping for approval. Oh, this is wonderful. Verlin had the door open before she could get to him. Come outside, will you, Helen? He flipped his head and gestured for her to follow. After he closed the door, Liz started to laugh. What on earth is going on? I shrugged my shoulders, trying to keep my composure. Who knows? But deep down, I knew. Several minutes later, Helen barged in, with Verlin following close behind. She was waving the note teasingly from side to side in the air. Then she mischievously danced past the other two women and handed the note to me. He said you can read it out loud. You know what's so insensitive about this? He doesn't ever talk to his wife about a thing. He doesn't even consider the feelings. And I'm going to be honest with you. Helen is full of crap too. I don't care what her husband did in the past. All that has gone outside the window for me, okay? Because here's the thing. You are supposed to be this girl's friend, and you're taking joy in the fact that you're going to be yet another mouth to feed in her household, and that all 11 of your kids are coming in tow, which will also take away from the many, many kids that they already have. I could see the joy on her face. I prayed for God to help me remain calm. I began to read. Dear Helen, will you marry me tomorrow? I'll take you with me to Nicaragua for a honeymoon. Love, Verlin. Smothering my rage with a fake smile, I acted like any other noble plural wife. I pretended sacrificial joy while I thought about how much I hated them both. Here was my long-awaited trip with Verlin, and he was taking someone else on a honeymoon instead. It's so insulting. I didn't even think about that quickly, because that whole thing distracted me. That quickly, y'all, I forgot that this man is supposed to be taking her on a trip. She's pregnant right now. She's not even supposed to be having another baby. And here he is adding a woman and 11 other kids to the family, despite the fact that he has all these other things going on. And he's going to take her on a honeymoon when she barely has gotten anything. Tag on Irene. You were just one of the many. He hugged Helen and said, well, it's all settled. We're getting married tomorrow at 9 a.m. so we can leave for Nicaragua by noon. He kissed Helen for the first time. She almost ran the floor blocks home. That night, Verlin came to bed uneasy, and rightfully so. I hope all my other wives will forgive me for this. I really should have notified them first. He talked on, trying to justify himself. Please forgive me, Irene. I know you wanted this trip, but you've got to realize it's the perfect time to marry Helen, since there are no other wives around to object, and it won't really be taking anybody else's time. So it doesn't matter that She objects. It doesn't matter that this was supposed to be her time. It doesn't matter how she feels, because all that matters is him. And it doesn't matter what the other wives think either. I need Irene to hurry up and run. We ain't got much book left, girl. Run, girl, run. What about me? I snapped. It won't be your time either. You knew I was going alone to Nicaragua, so don't count the time as yours. I can't believe I deserve this, Verlin, I said angrily. Every time I get close to a woman and share my intimate secrets, she pulls a fast one on me and marries my husband. What a hell of a way to ruin a good friendship, especially when I see her more than I see you. Verlin pulled me closer, laughing as he spoke. Okay, yeah. He wouldn't have been getting anything from me after that. You're laughing while I'm telling you my feelings and how this is hurting me. I can't help it if you're such a neat wife. You're so good to them, they all want to spend eternity with you. I dug my elbow into his side, afraid to say more for fear I'd cry. When he saw I didn't respond, he said, hey, don't get mad. She really loves you. Helen won't even consider marrying me if you weren't part of my wonderful family. Then, talking more to himself than to me, he said, gee, I wish I had time to buy Helen a wedding ring. Damn it, Verlin. Why don't you just order a dozen from Sears? Then you'll have them handy when you need one. He laughed. I appreciate you being so good about this marriage. He's not paying her any mind, her feelings any mind. She's not good about it. She doesn't want it, but he doesn't care. It means a lot to me that I can always depend on you to come through. Okay, so you're just going to gaslight her into making her feel like she really, really agrees with this when she clearly doesn't. I'm not her husband, and I know she doesn't agree with it. Y'all aren't her husband and wives, and y'all know it too. This is crazy. I'm not good, and I don't understand. Why in the world do you need any more wives? Irene, are you going to reject a wonderful blessing like this? Isaiah says that in the last days, 7 women will take hold of one man. Oh, so this is where he's getting the number 7 from. Got it. I angrily interrupted him. Hell, Verlin, you've already got 7. You fulfilled that prophecy. I told you years ago I'd leave you if you got more than 7 wives. I think I deserve at least 1 day a week. Honey, he pled, try to understand. How can I? Even if you were home all the time every day, I'd only see you 4 nights a month. That's 48 days a year. That's only a month and a half out of 12. Wow. Put that into context, y'all, because there are women in this religion that see their husbands even less than that, which is why Janelle thought that she won some prize in Bald Eagle. Hey, he said firmly, cutting me off. Let's not get a bad spirit about this. See, I'm here now, and you're just ruining your precious time. I don't know why you always want to waste it talking about other women. Besides, no one will ever take your place. What's her place? What's Irene's place? Cooking, preparing meals, watching kids, handing you off to other wives. Is that her place? Good hell, Verlin. Tomorrow someone will. Be thankful you're even here. It should be Lily's turn to give Helen to me since she's the last wife, but you get the privilege. I think Helen will feel honored because she loves you so much. He knew all along that he was going to do this. He knew all along that he was going to marry Helen, which is why he sat there and he invited her on this trip. It was never about her. It was about making himself good and making sure that he had her because Helen would like to see her there. This is a mess. So she's going to feel honored because Helen loves her so much. Yes, it would be the 3rd time I'd have the incredible privilege of giving another woman to my husband in marriage. Imagine just how thankful I was. Verlin kissed my unresponsive lips and said, let's go to sleep. I have so much to do. So many responsibilities. I can hardly take time off to get married. Then he rolled over. I lay in the dark, rubbing my hand over my pregnant stomach, wondering what more God might require of me. I thought about Helen. She really wasn't a threat to me. I even loved her, but God, it's so hard to share my husband with so many wives. I've been taught it was better to have a tenth of a good man than a worldly man all to yourself. I'll take the worldly man for 1,000, Alex, because I don't want a tenth of any man. Would I trade some failure for the husband I had? Not hardly. I tried to smother the jealousy burning in my chest. Since I already hung in there for so many years, I thought it'd be best to be patient. Why, I was right on the edge of glory. This life would be over soon enough, so why give up now? Verlin woke me up at 6 a.m. to give me his final instructions before he left. Please iron my shirt and polish my best shoes. I felt pangs of sadness in my heart. How many times had I packed his suitcase for essentially the same journey? I can spend a whole month with Helen, Verlin continued. Is this supposed to be his mission trip? He can spend a whole month with Helen? Wait, maybe it's not supposed to be his mission trip. Either way, he was supposed to be gone there for a while. This is a good chance to really get to know her. With so many of you around, this will be the most time Helen will ever have alone with me. I feel she needs it after being widowed so long. So he's more concerned about Helen than he is his own wife. Got it. He left immediately to get his business done so he wouldn't be late for his own wedding. I wouldn't have packed nothing for him. I wouldn't have signed any shoes. He would have had to do it himself. Because you're not going to sit here and use me and have me doing all of this for you. Meanwhile, you couldn't even be considerate of me to let me know that this was going to happen before I got there. I heard him call back to me. Be sure and be there a few minutes early. I'll see you there at 9 o'clock sharp. I wouldn't have showed up. 6 of Verlin's other wives were in Los Molinos. There was no electricity or telephone service in the colony where they lived, so he had no way of contacting them to inform them of his impending marriage. He just had to trust God, hoping God would touch their hearts with understanding when Verlin returned from his honeymoon with the belated news. I knew he hated to do this to them, but with me backing him up, he could go through it. He didn't hate to do anything. And Irene, I like you, but I don't agree with that statement, because he used you as a pawn so the other wives can be mad at you, not him. His other wives had every right to be angry, and they certainly would be, not only with him, but with me as well for upholding him in this marriage without their knowledge or consent. Exactly. He put her, this is what they do. These men play games, and they put these women in positions to where they have issues with their other family members and the other wives because they play them against each other. She doesn't want this either, but because of him, it's going to make it seem like she does. I felt comforted knowing I wasn't proving a problem for him. He needed me to play my part in furthering his kingdom, so I suppressed my feelings of rejection. If I would just be obedient and comply with his demands, he promised once again he loved me even more. And after all these promises and all this time, she's still buying this? I'm confused. When it came time, I walked the 3 blocks to my sister-in-law Louise's house. Several cars were parked along the dirt road out front. I was surprised at how many came to celebrate so early in the morning on such short notice, because it was already planned out. So all these other people know before any of the wives know, and before she knew. I shook hands all around and made sure I kept a smile on my face, knowing how I'd be judged by everyone. I would play the part, giving no one a chance to say I shrieked my duty or let God or let a good man down. Thank God for Linda. She saved my usual place next to her. When I got over there, she covered her mouth and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me about this yesterday?" That's easy. 'Cause I didn't know. Since when did they decide to get married? Last night. Verlin walked in, apologizing to everyone for being late. He looked handsome in his worn gray suit. Taking a seat beside Helen, he grabbed her hand in more of a handshake than a caress. When he saw me, he smiled and waved mildly, obviously relieved to see I'd come. Then he leaned over and whispered a few words to his brother Alma, who stood up, ready to conduct the meeting. Alma stoically welcomed everyone. Glancing at his watch, he announced, "We need to get this show on the road. We're running late." He waited for complete silence, then continued, "I appreciate all of you for making an effort to be here so early and on time. It always thrills my soul to see women so happy who are willing to put aside their selfish wants and to enter into this holy principle of plural marriage." Their selfish wants. So the men aren't being selfish by wanting this for themselves, but the women are being selfish by considering not wanting it for themselves. He was overcome with emotion. "Excuse me for crying," he said, sniffing and wiping his tears with his hanky. "I know this takes a woman of a conviction." What? He cleared his throat and nodded toward me. "I'm so glad to see Irene coming through for Verlin again." A smile crossed his worn face and his blue eyes twinkled. "She's always been outspoken and rebellious, but still she repents at the last minute, always coming through." What in the hell? This is what you're saying at a wedding? This is like she's there to be talked about, to be spoken of like this. Like she's not sitting there supporting her husband being a good wife right now. Why even say that? See, there's a reason why I couldn't do this stuff, because I'm telling you, I would have walked out. I would have gave him a show. Verlin would have been embarrassed. And I'm always the one that says, when we got problems, we'll deal with it in the house. We're not going to do all that out there for everybody to see. But this right here, it's too much. It's too much. You women here this morning would do well to follow her example. Being obedient is always what the Lord requires. Verlin must have been reading my mind as I was thinking, yeah, we have no choice in the matter. It's shape up or go to hell. He caught Alma's eyes, motioning for him to start the ceremony before my repenting subsided and my outspoken rebelliousness took over again. Alma then invited Verlin and Helen to come forward and take their places beside him. Flipping his head, Verlin motioned for me to take my place next to his bride-to-be. After so many times, I surely ought to have been trusted to take my place without being told. After a moment of silence, Alma cleared his throat. Looking directly into my eyes, he asked, "Do you, Sister Irene, take Helen by the right hand?" "I do," I said on cue as my voice cracked. I forced a broad smile and placed her hand in his. My eyelids fluttered frantically to divert the tears welling up in them. Verlin winked approvingly at me as I stepped back into my place. Alma continued, "Do you, Brother Verlin, take Sister Helen by the right hand and receive her unto yourself." I gave myself a silent sermon. "Don't you dare let a tear fall. Please be good. Come on, Irene. God still loves you." The next exhortation jarred me quickly out of myself. Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. She got 11 kids. Why do they need to be fruitful? I'm just saying. I hated to have them both admit they would. Besides, Helen had already done that. She had 11 children. She was going through menopause, so her sex life would be short-lived. Thank God. That's what you think. Alma neared the end of long, divinely revealed ceremony. I knew it almost by heart, though this time it would be worded a little differently. I now pronounce you legally and lawfully husband and wife for time only. It usually said for time and eternity. Helen was sealed to her dead husband, Theron. He would have her again in the next life, not Verlin. But that wasn't much consolation to me. Okay, so he's going to have her in the next life, not Verlin. And Verlin needs to have the other 13 or however many kids, which is why he tells them to multiply. Wait a second. So if they were to have kids, does that mean that those kids are sealed to Verlin and not sealed to her other husband? Yo, this is crazy. That was no consolation to me because I had to deal with her now. On my side, you may now kiss the bride. Verlin obeyed, giving her a brief kiss. Then he pulled her close and hugged her. With Helen still partially in his embrace, he pulled me over and kissed me also. It made me feel so out of place, but I'm sure he meant it as a reward for giving him his 8th wife. Thank God I had Linda, the one person I could count on in this life. She walked me back to Priscilla's house, promising me along the way she'd never marry Verlin. Never, even if she became a widow. I appreciated such loyalty. I was proud of her. She read my mind. Let it out, Irene. Let it out. Cry. Just let go of your feelings. You'll feel better. I tried, but I soon realized I wasn't going to cry. There were no tears. I knew Helen couldn't take away something that never really belonged to me. When we got to Priscilla's, the 3 of us discussed our husbands' many weddings, laughing about how bad they once made us feel. Soon, Lane Stubbs came knocking on the door for me. Verlin sent me to get you. He said to drop whatever you're doing and come now. Why? Why she gotta drop what she's doing and come? Go enjoy your time with your wife. Leave her alone. She's done her job. I laughed and joked with Lane as we drove to Louis' home. The newlyweds were supposed to leave from there for their honeymoon. I bet Verlin realized he didn't spend any time with me. I'm sure he wants to tell me how much he appreciates me. I said, no, that's not true. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Yeah, I guess all men forget things like that. I don't tell my 3 wives that I appreciate them enough either, he commented. I got out of his truck and walked into the house. Lane left to get Helen because Verlin wanted to talk to her too. I walked down the dark hall into the bedroom where Verlin was impatiently waiting for me. He seldom got angry, but he was hopping mad now. Damn it, Irene. You knew. He pointed at me accusingly. You did this on purpose. I couldn't imagine what he was talking about. I stood wide-eyed and speechless. He ran it on. You knew. And don't you tell me you didn't. I was completely baffled. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Oh, I wonder if she didn't tell him she was pregnant and he's found out she was pregnant in some kind of way. What on earth are you talking about? He grew even angrier. You knew damn well that today is Charlotte's anniversary. Wait a second. He got married on his other wife's anniversary, number 1. Number 2, why are you blaming her? It is your job to keep up with your anniversary, not hers. She already has to keep up with her 13 kids' birthdays. You should be able to keep up with your 7, now 8 anniversaries. You did this to her. Just because you 2 don't get along, you let me marry Helen today on purpose. It was so ridiculous. I couldn't keep from bursting into laughter. You're the one who proposed, Verlin. Don't try and blame me. You're over 21. You knew what you were doing, and I didn't do this to you on purpose either. Irene, I'm absolutely sick about this. Now my problems have gotten really out of hand. Swear to me you'll keep this from Charlotte no matter what. Helen's soft knock quieted Verlin down. He shook his head, readying himself to face, readying. Where did I get redying from? Readying himself to face whatever was ahead with this new wife. Helen entered, surprised to see me. Hi. She looked at Verlin. What's going on? Sit down, he ordered. We have a little problem that needs to be discussed. He began tactfully, almost pleadingly, he asked. Would you be willing to change the date of our marriage? Just move it up 2 days and have the 10th for your anniversary? Helen's look told both Verlin and me she wasn't one to be pushed around. A puzzled expression came over my face. Why, she asked, adding stubbornly, today's the 8th, and I happen to like the 8th. I hope he gets a run for his money with Helen. I love it. Verlin buried his face in his strong hands. Please, Helen, this is a matter of life or death. Just say yes. Do it for me. It's Charlotte's anniversary today, and she'll never forgive me if she finds out. Helen shook her head disgustedly and said, I wonder what I've gotten myself into. I thought it was a little late for her to be wondering that. Besides, she already lived polygamy when she was married to her husband. I figured she'd been accustomed to this sort of nonsense. Just do it for me, Verlin sighed. You'll see, I'll have a hard enough time making Charlotte realize the necessity of marrying you without her permission, let alone marrying you without her permission on her anniversary. Helen shook her head. I don't like it. I really don't. But I guess if you say so, she reluctantly agreed. Poor Helen. My heart went out to her. She hadn't been married 30 minutes and already she was stomping on another wife's rights. And that's where we're ending it. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. This is gonna be a hot mess. Y'all, a lot went on in this. Tell me what you think. What do we think about him marrying his friend's wife, number one? What do we think about him not sharing this info with his other wives? And the best of all, what do we think about him doing it on the same day as the other anniversary, trying to blame Irene and then going back to trick his wife by not telling the truth? I'm going to be honest with you. I got to be honest. I'm going to keep it real. If I were Irene, I'd tell Charlotte the truth. I would. Because he always seems to try to weasel his way out of things, and he doesn't think about them. He only thinks about himself. Go ahead, do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, like the video. It helps. Leave that comment down. I'm really interested in hearing what y'all thought about this chapter. Until next time.